Zion exited the play-in with another injury, right as he was starting to will the Pelicans to a win. He's dominated a lot of games when available and when he's locked in, but with health concerns and the team structure, is it time for New Orleans to blow the team up? Before we start, consider subscribing to the channel where we dissect the hottest NBA topics with cutting-edge analytics. So Zion at times has looked like the dominant force the Pelicans hoped for when they drafted him. Given his massive frame and athleticism, he is nearly unstoppable when driving to the rim. This year, he shot 67.4% in the restricted area. For perspective, in terms of points scored, that's as efficient as a guy shooting 45% from three, and even more impactful when you take in foul drawing into consideration. While it's a great ability that puts a ton of pressure on defenses through forcing double teams and causing foul trouble, he's yet to show the most important skill to help his team: availability. In his young 5-year NBA career, Zion has already dealt with 22 lower body injuries, 226 missed games, including an entire season shut down. And this was his healthiest season thus far, with 70 games played, but for the most part, he looked deconditioned and overweight early on, which of course has always been the underlying issue for his career and the main talking point about him. It was reported that Zion ramped up his commitment level and lost 25 pounds since the in-season tournament. And you could see the difference that made to his play, taking more charge of the offense and being much more active on both ends. But even in shape, we still don't know if his body will ever be able to handle the immense load placed on it by his 284-pound frame, combined with the insane explosive feats he does on a nightly basis. As of right now, Zion is a ticking time bomb of injury until he proves otherwise. For argument's sake, let's say Zion can stay healthy. He still has been so inconsistent, it's hard to imagine him as a true number one option on title contenders. Since what was arguably his best year in his sophomore season, he had a 27.1 PER, true shooting percentage of 64%, and contributed .208 win shares per 48 minutes. Things have just gotten worse each year after. And 3 years later, his true shooting was a career worst, as was the PER, and his win shares dropped to the second worst behind only his rookie season. Even this year, each month saw wildly different levels, highlighted by his best month in March, where he was a plus 7.3 on the court and then immediately dropped in April to a plus 2.3. It could be the conditioning issue, or perhaps he's not carrying enough. Zion was caught out by his teammates earlier in the year for a lack of effort, and by experts such as Richard Jefferson for not being a leader. That's a big concern that puts even more unneeded stress on the team. With the play-in games now a thing, teams need to strive for at least a top 6 seed to secure a playoff spot. When your main guy fades in and out from night to night, that's going to severely hurt your chances to accomplish that. Now let's talk about the team's actual structure. Zion's running mate Brandon Ingram has his own injury concerns to deal with, as does third piece CJ McCollum. If one guy needs to load manage throughout the year, that's fine for the most part. But at some point, everyone needs to be available to not just win games, but also build on-court chemistry. Look at the problems that caused for the Phoenix Suns. With those three leading the way, it's no guarantee that you're going to have them for important matchups and games. Now, given that Zion is a player whose archetype makes building a team difficult, for example, you should have a floor spacing shot blocker at center and 3-and-D wings to hide his defensive struggles, plus a perimeter scorer to give him as much space as possible, you need everyone available to make all that effort worth it. With all of that taken into account, it might be time for the Pelicans to ask, should we move on from Zion? Don't forget to subscribe.